Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Metal Magdalene with Jet right here on Metal Messiah Radio. Tonight, I have a special guest with me. I have Lee Harrison of the mighty Monstrosity. Welcome to the show, Lee.
Hello, greetings.
So, Lee, Monstrosity was founded by you and George Fisher. So tell us a little bit about the early days when you and George started this band up.
Okay, it's like such a long story. I can't.
That's okay. We got time.
We got a moment. I guess it would start in '88. I was living in kind of on just south of Tampa, and when I turned 18, I wanted to go south and form a band. And I basically, I worked at a movie theater for like $3.35 an hour. Saved up for my drums, got my drum set. As soon as I was 18, I had my van packed. Went down to Miami. A friend of mine that I grew up with introduced me to some friends that were playing in bands, and one of those bands was the band Cynic. Mm-hmm. And the original bass player for Cynic was Mark Van Erp, who was actually the original bass player for Monstrosity, too. And I met him in '88. I went down there and we hung out. I watched Cynic play, watched some shows at the Cameo Theater in Miami Beach. Kind of got to know the people down there, and like just was trying to find a band. I had this singer guy and another guitar player from Homestead, and we were trying to get it going, but it just wasn't working. And eventually, Malevolent moved to Fort Lauderdale. And so Cynic and Malevolent were kind of hooking up, and I was helping out Mark Van Erp and Cynic, by just, being a friend, and I'd help pass out flyers, and we'd cruise around and, just promoting the shows and stuff like that. And so when Malevolent came to town, they ended up playing together, and I saw Malevolent, and we thought they were killer, we thought they were awesome, and they weren't happy with their drummer, who, at the time, so I told him, hey, I'm ready, whatever, and basically just ended up joining Malevolent. And in the meantime, Mark Van Erp left Cynic, and he went back to New York. Some things happened up there, whatever. And he tried to get in Malevolent. Like, I spent about a year in Malevolent. We did the 1989 demo and did a bunch of shit. Like, we started playing at this place called the Treehouse, and, like, it just was growing big time, And part of the how do I put it? Part of the charm of Malevolent was that they'd all come down with like every brother and every cousin, so it was like we had a built-in crowd before we even came out. Really, we'd already had this, like 30 people that were with us, So that helped a lot. Kind of like, wow, these guys are popular, I think it like fooled people into thinking that we were something more than we were, maybe. But we were pretty happening at the time. We were playing every other weekend. And the crowds were just getting bigger. And then Obituary and Sepultura albums came out in like June of '89. And we ended up talking to those Obituary, and like we brought them down to South Florida. And that like kind of blew the door open even more. And from there, things with Phil weren't working out, and there was just money arguments and stuff like that going on. So essentially I was fired, and then I went back to Sarasota, south of Tampa, kind of regroup. And at the same time, Mark Van Erp happened to be calling Phil, and he was joining. So he wanted to play with me in Malevolent, but it just worked out where I wasn't going to be in the band. So he came down and joined Malevolent. So now Malevolent's Phil, John Rubin, Brett, and Mark Van Erp, and a new drummer, Mark Simpson. And they did, 7 or 8 months or whatever. And I just kind of, I actually came back, and I met Roger Patterson from Atheist, and kind of was hanging around him. He was saying that their drummer was going off to college. He didn't know what was going on. So, like, I started trying to, maybe, like, start learning some of that material, maybe jam with those guys. Mm-hmm. And then it was kind of like, no, we're going to stick with our drummer. So I just kind of, then I didn't play with them anymore, or I didn't try to learn the material anymore. I kind of gave up. And then, like, a month later, they called me one morning. Or I was actually going to go down to South Florida anyway to see Atheist play with Cynic, and so I was already going anyway. But they called me the morning of the show and said, "Hey, our drummer's sick. Can you come and do the show?" So packed my drums and went down and did the show with Atheist with no practice. So that was interesting. The songs I knew I did good. The songs I didn't know I didn't. Obviously didn't come off as well. So, then I was like, well, maybe, I didn't know what was going on. But Steve was back, so it really wasn't going to happen with Atheist. It was cool to hang out with Roger. He was an awesome guy. Mm-hmm. People don't know. He was so cool and so supportive. We thought those guys would be, big-headed because they're so killer, but Roger was just, he loved Malevolent and, loved what I was doing, wanted to jam, and just, he was so cool. But shame, we lost him.
Yeah.
But, so from there, I did the... kind of like a solo project, I play guitar and bass and stuff, and I wrote some, like, thrash songs, like, just kind of, I don't know, they were kind of, I wasn't trying to be totally, like, it wasn't like, I didn't put, like, everything I had into it, but I just, I just basically wanted to get something out, so I just kind of more or less rushed 9 songs together and made a little demo, and from there, things with Mark Van Herp and Malevolent were starting to unravel. And so, long story longer, I ended up going down to Fort Lauderdale, hooking up with Mark Van Herp, and we started Monstrosity. Mm-hmm. We had a guitar player from Miami that came up, and we called him Todd the Freak. And he was a good guy, but, we knew it was only going to be temporary. For whatever reason, we just felt that it was going to be temporary. And not long after that, Malevolent had started recording. The funny thing is that I sent in the video for Roadrunner to sign them. Mm-hmm. So now they're signed, and they're doing the Roadrunner album. And they did the basic tracks. And right after that, John Rubin was fired or quit. I don't know which way, but whatever, he was out of the band, so we pulled him in. So now we're kind of like, it's like 3 ex-Malevolent guys. And to go back up a little before, after the Atheist thing and before Monstrosity, I was talking with a guy named Ted Hartz from a band called Ex Mortis. Mm-hmm. And he wanted me to join Ex Mortis, which is, the drummer for that band was Antar from Diabolic. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know him then. But, I was like, I'll check it out, send me a demo. And it was like I'll check it out, So I flew up to Baltimore. Oh, I know what it was. I flew up to Baltimore with him to meet him, but in the meantime, he had been kicked out of Ex Mortis.
Oh, jeez.
So now he's looking for he's trying to, do something, and he introduces me to George. And me, George, and Ted Hartz, we go up to New Jersey, and we saw Ripping Corpse, Malevolent, and I can't forget who else was on that bill, but it was a show in Jersey. And we all hung out there and did that. That was cool. But, met George, heard him sing in the car, Mm-hmm. So I knew he was, I knew he could sing. So when it came time for a singer, I was like, hey, I got this Corpse Grinder guy. Blah, 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 and that's kind of how the Corpse Grinder name came up, Mm-hmm. I gave him his name, Corpse Grinder, but it's pretty much just from, hey, that Corpse Grinder guy, that was the band he was in, Uh-huh. And then we kind of, like, went with it, after, he's Corpse Grinder. So after that, then, the thing was Ted Hartz was going to be in it, but he kind of like, I don't know he got a big head or something. He just decided that, all the material that me and Mark had already written, we were going to throw out, and all this stuff. So we just didn't work with Ted on that. So it was it was John Rubin, Mark Van Herp, me, and George. And a guy named Ross from West Palm Beach, he had a club up there, and he was doing shows, and he offered us the opening spot for Massacre. Mm. And at the time, Massacre was, it was like a different lineup than the usual Massacre lineup. It had been a while since they'd been out, so it was something new. We're like, yeah, we'll do it. And we went up there and it didn't go good. Never change your set list on the day of the show. Let's just put it that way. So we were like, really, like, should we just quit or what? What is the problem? But so we went back and licked our wounds, and Ross gave us another shot, and this time it was with Deicide and Malevolent Creation at that same club. So we had redemption on our mind that time, so we just practiced, and we came out and we did really good at the show. Mm-hmm. And then that night, the same guy, Ross, is like, hey, you guys want to open for Pantera tomorrow?
Whoa.
In Orlando? Sure. And at the time, Pantera wasn't Pantera quite yet.
Right.
So I was like, who are all these people? Where are they? What are they doing here for these guys? But we played a really good show there too, and that really kind of established Monstrosity in the Florida scene, I guess. Mm-hmm. So good at those shows. And how long was it before you started with Nuclear Blast? Then after that, well, see, that's the thing is that because we formed the band, me and Mark formed in August of 1990. By October, George came down. November 10th, I think it was, we played our first show. December 17th, we did the demo. And in that whole time, we were talking to Roadrunner too, because, we wanted to be on that label. And seeing as we had the connection with Malevolent, we kind of had an in with some of those guys. Mm-hmm. So we were calling them every few days and just kind of more or less gossiping on who was doing what, and just more or less, well, once we get our stuff together, we're going to be right here, ready to be on the team. So we did the demo, and they loved it. They did like it, and they tried to pair us up with James Murphy because he had just left Obituary, fired, left, whatever happened there, and they thought it would be a good way to kill two birds with one stone, put James Murphy with Monstrosity. So James came down, and we played the demo songs, and he was great. Everything was cool, but it just, whatever reason, it didn't work out. And so from there, what happened from there? We just kept on as a four-piece and kept writing songs. And then it was also around that time, 91, I guess, when Paul and Sean from Cynic were off doing the Death thing. Tony Choi was off doing the Pestilence thing or the Atheist thing, whichever, I forget. But so Jason Goebel was kind of out on his own. We're like, hey, we'll pull in Jason Goebel. He'd be great. So we pulled him in for the album. And we knew it was going to be temporary, but he's an old friend, so it was kind of like a good fit. We love Jason; he's awesome. So that worked out. But we knew we weren't going to be permanent. And from there, we got when we did the European tour, the first European tour, we got Mark English, and he did that tour. And he's in the band now, but he wasn't in the band all through the '90s. He did that tour, did some other shows with us, but it just didn't work out at the time. And then we tried to bring him back a few years later when we had Jason Morgan in the band, and it just still didn't work out. I don't know. But then finally, when Tony left the band to join Morbid Angel in 2003, I guess, Mark came into the band, and he's been with us ever since. So.
It all sounds so crazy.
So, and the thing with Nuclear Blast is it was a case of, Roadrunner said that, we just got so many bands now. They had just signed everybody. Suffocation, Deicide was already signed, and all that stuff. So they kind of, they were like, well, we got these, friends of ours or whatever it was, Nuclear Blast. They're a great label, and at the time, Nuclear Blast was nothing in America. They were just more of a punk rock hardcore label out of Germany. And they sent us a bunch of CDs. We were just impressed they were able to print CDs, I guess. I don't know why. What made us think that they were so great? But whatever. We felt we had a little more dominance since that they were up and coming, and we were kind of being recommended by Roadrunner. So we had all these outrageous demands in our contracts, and just. I don't know, but it worked out. And then when we did the album More Sound, we just I don't know how to explain it, but just, using the budget for, hotels and things like that, and
Right.
food, and just, there's so many things I would have done differently with that album.
Mm-hmm.
But you're young, and that's what,
Sure.
first time in a real studio, so that's what happens.
And then not too long after that, you were whisked off to Europe for a European tour.
Correct.
So how was that for you?
With Pestilence, and that turned into fiasco due to our bass player at the time making collect calls from Europe
Oh, Jesus.
to his girlfriend in the hotel, not appreciating it. So I think that had a major part, and there was just it was just kind of a crazy tour anyway.
But did you have fun?
Oh yeah, definitely. We always have fun.
So there you go. 5 albums out now. Did you guys do a lot of touring after releasing every album?
We really didn't start touring until '96. We did a tour with Cataclysm and Dying Fetus. It was Dying Fetus' first time out.
Wow.
They opened the tour, and we did more or less went around the whole U.S. Went out to L.A. and pretty much back to Florida, all the way. Did Milwaukee Fest, and maybe some other things. Then in '97, by that time I had the label going, Conquest Music, and I brought Vader over for, we did Broken Hope, Vader Monstrosity tour in '97.
Wow.
That was a pretty extensive tour, and definitely, that put us on the map a lot more. And then '99, we did the Dimmu Borgir tour. That was our first time in the U.S., in a full tour.
Nice.
It was 30 shows with Samael and Dimmu Borgir and Monstrosity, so that was pretty huge. And after that, we did kind of some smaller tours, but they were longer.
Mm-hmm.
We did 30 shows, and then we did another 30 shows with Deeds of Flesh, so it was kind of back-to-back tours in 2001. And then we did Rise to Power. Guess we went back to Europe. We've been to Europe, a bunch of times since. So we did a Vader Dying Fetus thing, and we did something in '98. We did a big tour. I forget who that was with. Flesh Crawl, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've always kind of, we try to make it over, for every album we do a full tour of the Europe and full tour of US. The problem has always been it's just never timed right. It's always we're already halfway recorded the next album and we're just now going over for the album before, you know what I mean?
Right.
That seems to be our problem, But the reality is that, we're not some huge priority band that so we have to, work harder for what we get. It's just the way it is. But, I own all the material and,
Well, you
a lot
guys...
of bands can't say that. A lot of bands...
That's true.
I was talking to Obituary, and a lot of their early albums are just not available. And I don't know that they're going to be. I don't know. But it just seems like a lot of bands, when they sign to labels like that, they just lose their rights.
And it's a shame because they don't know when they're first doing it, that's not going to ever be theirs.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, hey, last year you guys played in Florida and you said you're going to be making more music. So what's going on with you guys? Are you writing or what?
Okay. So you want to hear the stress?
I want to hear the stress. Lay it on us.
All right. So we've been writing, the whole time. But basically, I would say March of last year, we started guitar tracks at Mark's house. Mm-hmm. Well, let me back up. When we did Spiritual, we went to Morrisound, and with that album, Mark just spent a lot more time than we wanted to. But what we ended up doing is they call call it reamping the leads or whatever. We just reamp, it's like he did the leads at home, but then he brings them into the studio, runs them through all the stuff, the gear there, and it comes out. It sounds like he's playing in the studio, but really he's at home, you know. So we did that with Spiritual Apocalypse. Some of his solos he did at the house, and we brought him into Morris Sound, reamped him, and it came out. And we thought that was such a great idea. We'd be like, well, hey, wouldn't it be great if, you do the next album, we'll just do all the guitars at your house and just reamp everything. And, cool, you can sit in your underwear and in front of the computer and be all alone and do your thing, and have, play to your heart's content. So that was the concept. Well, Mark, he was like, well, I need an engineer because, I don't want to worry about having to engineer everything, So basically I got roped into engineering. And so we did all the guitar tracks, pretty much spent, at least a couple months on it, getting it all ready. So then what I had was those guitar tracks with the click track, and I took them into Audio Hammer Studios over in Orlando with my buddy Jason Sukoff, who he's doing all the new metal stuff. I'm sure you've heard of him. He did The Last Deicide, he did Death Angel, so he's not doing just new metal, but a lot of that metalcore stuff, that's kind of like where he's made his name, I guess. And Trivium was his first, we were his guinea pig when we did Rise to Power, and Trivium was his other band, and next thing you know, Trivium's all over the place, blowing up. So he ended up getting a lot of work from that Trivium record, and basically made it, he's got a nice compound over in Orlando. It's pretty cool, and great drum room, and it's like Morrisound in his backyard, literally. And now that Morrisound has been sold to the Trans-Siberian Orchestra guys, we don't have Morrisound right here. It's kind of nice to have a, world-class studio 40 minutes from your house.
Right.
But, so now, we're going a little farther. We're going over to Sanford, Orlando area, and doing our thing there. So, last June, into June, I took those guitar tracks, and we spent a week, and I've never, we spent 4 days just getting the drum tones, before I even played song one. So, and that, normally it's 3 hours, 6 hours maybe.
Right. Oh, yeah, the stress is beginning, huh?
Right. So then I got through that. It was a week just staying over there, and just, we finally got it done, bashed it out, and got back, and we're kind of waiting on Mark Lewis to be ready to mix it. And in the meantime, I don't know how to put it. Basically, just we're still cutting the bass, and just still working on the vocals, and just everything's just not finished yet. So the guy, he had to move on, and he's had to start. I think it was he had to go up to LA for Whitechapel, and now he came back and did the Fallujah record in the meantime, and what can I say? We're perfectionists, and I guess we're taking it to a whole new level. But Mark's kind of had the tracks, and I really had. It's kind of been done and been out of my hands. He's just been tweaking, little solos here and there, little parts, making this riff a little better, and we're just kind of right at this point. We're waiting on Mark Lewis because he had, like I said, he had to move on and do some other projects. But now we're waiting for his next window here, and hopefully we'll jump in. But the good news is the 12 songs are recorded, everything's ready to be mixed, and it's just then we're just waiting to get that done. And once that is done, I will be happy.
Well, it's still early in the year, so hopefully you'll get it done by the end of the year.
Yeah, I've learned to never, put timelines or anything.
No.
It always seems so easy once it's almost done. Once it's I'm going to do the next one a lot quicker. Yeah, okay.
Well, the good news is that we can expect new stuff from Monstrosity, and everybody's so looking forward to that. So just, before we go, tell us about your other project then, Lavoisin. What's going on with that?
Okay, Lavoisin's something I kind of started just doing some covers in my band room, like old metal covers, just, where I play guitar, play bass, drums, and sing. basically, I had this singer guy at the time. He was kind of like a Dio type. And I wanted to do something with him, but he just flaked out on me. And I pretty much decided at that point, you know, better or worse, I'm just going to sing, and it's going to be, that's what it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do that. It's something that I've got, like, I just, like, spent the last month recording, like, 24 drum tracks.
Wow.
So I'm gonna, it's kind of like my whole little catalog that I got. I just kind of, like, just put it all in one, I guess. And so I'm working on that, trying to get, you know, the best versions, you know, because a lot of the older songs don't sound as good. I'm just trying to update them with the production.
Right.
And, you know, my goal is I'd eventually like to go into, you know, Audio Hammer and do something over there with a real big studio. But at this point, there's just no real budget for it. And, you know, I'm so busy anyway. But, so I got that. And then, you know, of course, I'm playing guitar with Pete from Terrorizer. And we're doing that. We got 12 songs written for that.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's really cool stuff. And you know, it's kind of, I hate to say it, but it's almost, you know, I don't want to say it's more monstrosity, because it's not. But you know what I mean? Like, with
sure.
Like, I've always written riffs kind of 50%, half and half. Like, so I've, you know, my stamp's always been in the monstrosity sound. These guys are, you know, guitarists, if you will.
Yeah.
And they don't like the idea of the drummer writing the riffs, even if the drummer plays guitar. You know, they want to play what they want to play, and
sure.
I understand that. So I kind of took like a you know, backseat role on this album as far as the guitar writing. You know, I have a few songs, like 3 or 4 songs, but there's a lot more of Mark English, a lot more of Matt Barnes on the new Monstrosity stuff, whereas the Terrorizer's all me writing the riffs. So I don't know, you know.
So when is new Terrorizer coming out?
You tell me what you think when you hear it all.
I will be happy to. When is the new Terrorizer stuff coming out then?
Well, we're working on that. We're tentatively scheduled for May for starting the drum tracks for that album.
Oh, nice.
And, you know, I'm a writing machine.
I see that, yeah.
Like I said, we got 12 songs now, and probably by then I'll have like 6 or 7 more at least.
Nice.
And we'll pick through the best ones and pick the best. But, you know, the problem with that, with the Terrorizer is, you know, finding the balance from what people expect of Terrorizer and what we really want to play.
Right.
And with Terrorizer, a lot of people are, you know, they want World Downfall, you know, and I get it. I'm a fan of Terrorizer, you know, regardless of being in the band and not anything like that. So, you know, I want it to sound like, and it does sound like that, but it just kind of has more of a death metal feel, I think, you know, than, and so we're just trying to find that balance between having the old school versus having, you know, what we, you know, we're, you know, developed musicians. Pete's gotten so much better, and I got him, you know, playing with a metronome now, and we're really pushing the speed and, like, just trying to get, you know, just really, you know, we want this album to blow people away, you know, and, like, really take it to another level. And, you know, what everybody thinks of Pete is one thing, and I want them to, you know, I kind of want to I want people to reevaluate that with the new album and be like, wow, you know, this is... So, you know, it's kind of a fight there to figure out how we're going to do that and still keep it Terrorizer, you know?
Right. Well, you know, at least you got a lot of shit going on this year. You got Terrorizer, you got Monstrosity.
I got 5 bands, basically, I consider, because
there you go.
I play with a local cover band every weekend for the last 15, 20 years. And I also do the Midnight thing, even though, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but Midnight was the Crimson Glory singer.
Right.
And he passed away in 2009, but we ended up recording like a whole discography in the 2 years, 3 years that I knew him. He came, you know, he stayed with me for a while, and we would just record. And it was great, you know, I could just sit here and record a little acoustic song, not even, you know, the whole thing and just have him sing over it. Once I had his vocal, then I would know, okay, yeah, now I can build the rest around that.
Mm-hmm.
And we just came up with song after song after song, and unfortunately he died, and there was, some stuff to work out with the family. It took a little while, but basically I'm handling his posthumous releases, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a good guy, and it's just cool to be able to do that. I've been lucky in my career that I've been able to work with people I admired.
Yeah.
I got to do the Obituary tour in 2012. I played guitar with them in South America. Jamming with Midnight. I was, having John Oliva come to my house and sing a duet with Midnight was, writing lyrics for Suffocation, playing with Atheist, playing with Malevolent, playing, you know what I mean? So
I do.
I've had a pretty good string,
Yeah, I think so. And
hopefully more comes.
I was going to say, it's not over yet. Jeez.
Right.
Well, it looks like you're going to be keeping out of trouble or getting into it. I don't know either way, but, So I'm assuming that people could just go to Facebook to learn about all these bands that you're in, what's going on with them. And that's like the best spot. And, thank you so much for coming on the show and telling us. I mean, you told me some stuff that I had no idea. I had no idea about the whole Crimson Glory Midnight thing or anything like that. So it was great having you on to tell us about all this stuff. And, oh my God, Lee, best of luck to you in this busy year you have coming up.
I'm hungry for metal.
Well, thanks a lot for doing this with us tonight.
All right, you take care.